So, Jessica's husband died 3 years ago?
It'll be 3 years in November 4th.
3 years in November. Was on an ATV accident, and he was with his nephew, right?
Yeah, his nephew and his friend for a birthday weekend.
Okay, so it was pretty sudden death.
Very, very much so.
So, looking back, what was like some of the most difficult parts? Or what was maybe one
Yeah.
difficult part?
I mean, I think through every stage has been like really different as far as like what has been difficult. I mean, definitely like at first, all of it was difficult. Accepting that it had happened, figuring out all of the details, like what's life gonna look like, how am I gonna help my kids through this.
Because how many other kids you have?
I have 3 kids.
And how old are
So Atticus was 9. Adeline had just turned 6. Oops, she just turned 5 or 6. And Avery was 2. Yeah, math. So yeah, they were, pretty young.
So how did you, I know we've talked to several people about balancing that tension of trying to help yourself, trying to help your kids, your other family members. Was that a tension for you? Or how did you do?
Definitely. And I think, that's part of what was difficult for me is I'm just not a super emotional person. I tend to avoid things that make me emotional, and so when I'm thrust into this situation where it's like you're just gonna have to be upset, there's no avoiding it. My natural inclination was to get swept up in the functional things that needed fixed, the managing life, doing all the things and not dealing with the pain of it. And so personally, I had to schedule this, this time I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna have my quiet time, and I'm gonna grieve. And then with the kids too, being very purposeful in crying in front of them, and in expressing that I was sad and hurt, and how painful that was, and with other family too, because I wanted everyone to know, and probably myself too, is that it's okay to hurt, you're gonna hurt. And the whole not showing pain, not showing tears, not that's not strength. That's just shoving it away for when you're in the shower or sobbing on the bathroom floor. And so I really made a point to when I felt no, I'm gonna cry, and it's okay. And
I assume each of your kids at such different ages grieved differently?
Very differently. It was very interesting, the different ways that they grieved. Atticus, being 9, he was the oldest. He was the most kind of aware of what was really going on, and so he, him and I were able to talk about it, process some of it. He definitely was more he would get upset and cry and want to come talk to me, and he still does. Adeline was very unique, I think, and maybe, I think it was age appropriate, but also she never cried. She still has not cried about losing her dad. And when we were at the memorial service, she was in the bathroom with a tummy ache the whole time. And she just recently, she was very much she's a very cuddly kid, and she really shut down, like emotionally, relationally, and so just recently, like probably in the past like 6 months, she started, being more like initiating like hugs and coming and sitting next to me and, wanting me to braid her hair and doing more of that. So that's been like it's been odd because I've just gotten used to her being like distant. And I think a lot of that was, we did counseling with her, and then just like the time that's progressed and whatnot.
And I think with kids, especially the younger ones, is finding ways to keep their dad's memory alive. Have you got any suggestions?
Yeah, we have pictures, and we'll talk about him, and what they enjoyed about him, and like, oh, this was your daddy's favorite thing, or and just was it just the other day, I was eating macaroni out of the pot, and they're like, that's what daddy used to do all the time, and like, it wasn't even something I'd ever even thought of, but it was something that they remembered. And then Avery, my youngest, so she was 2 at the time, and I was so worried that she was just gonna forget him, and because she was 2 and didn't have very many memories, and yet she's the one that like she talks about him the most. She talks about like whenever she gets upset, she talks about how much she misses him. She asked so many questions about heaven and death, and where he is now, and she has all these plans, like when we get to heaven, we're gonna go to the park, and we're gonna watch hamster videos, and all the fun things that she remembered doing with him. Has plans to do that again, and she always wants to pray about daddy, and then about her baby cousin that passed away, and her other grandpa that passed away, and so it's just for a 5-year-old, she knows, she's so well versed in heaven and what that's going to be like.
Well, I think as a mother, you probably experience a lot of grief just watching your kids go through something that's makes it more complicated. And tonight we're talking about this issue of regret and guilt and how that can complicate.
Yeah.
Did that come into play at all? Was there, like, did you ever feel like, oh, I should have told him not to go, or I should have done this?
Not so much in like that respect. And actually this is just something that God has just recently been like peeling away another layer of like, this is the next hard thing you're gonna have to face, is realizing that our marriage was far from perfect, and there was a decent chunk of time where we were fairly relationally distant, and I became like really independent, and he was very withdrawn, and so like that was a hard part of our marriage, and probably less than it was getting better, and then like maybe 4 to 6 months before he passed, it felt like things really turned a corner, and I felt like I had my marriage back, and this was the man that I married, and it was a great summer, and we had so much fun, and so then when he passed, like for the past couple of years, everyone's like, you're handling this, so well, you're so strong, and it's like, I'm realizing like, I just jumped back into the normal, oh, he's withdrawn, I'm managing things, this is just life, and I feel like, that's probably partially too of why it's so like, it almost feels like he's just, work in the basement, or he's at work, and he's gonna, he'll come home and it still feels like he could walk in at any moment, and we just pick up in that withdrawn state of our marriage. So it's like I felt like I just reversed back into being, independent and not.
Right.
And so like I said, God is just kind of just now peeling away that layer of like this is what we're going to deal with next. And so there's definitely some regret and guilt with that. Like, what could I have done to push our marriage back together sooner, so I could have had more time, with him and really enjoyed, our marriage the way it should have
Now,
been.
have there been other layers that have been peeled away that have taught you about yourself or God?
Oh, definitely. And I think, one of the biggest ones was last summer, and the summer before it kind of all bled together of God kind of forcing me to feel angry about it, because, like I said, I'm not a very emotional person, and when it first happened, I was like, there's no one to be angry at, it was an accident, the other person wasn't at fault, Josh wasn't at fault, and I've grown up in the church, I've grown up in a solid relationship with God and a biblical understanding of, this is life and it's shitty and bad things happen, and so there wasn't any blame to pass around, but there came a point where God was telling me I could have healed him, I could have prevented it, and I'm like, okay, I know that, why? I don't want to dwell on it though, God, why are you pointing this out to me? It's true, yes, but I'm not gonna get angry at you about that. And he's like, no, be angry, and I had to get angry about it in order for God to then point out I could have, and one day I will. And that was fairly huge. It was I can't anticipate heaven. I can't truly desire being reunited with Josh. I can't truly have that hope until I'm thoroughly disgusted with this life. And yes, there's good things about this life, but if you're not angry about the bad things that happen, then you can't look forward to all the good that's coming. And then after I came through that, God, there was another layer of then God was like, but man, I really wanted to. And I was standing there in that hospital room with you, crying with you, and just knowing, that it's going to be so much better one day. But I wanted it to be better now. But we have heaven.
Yeah, and those are issues that I think are just really difficult because I've read a lot of books by Larry Crabb, Paul Tripp, and they talk about that issue about how we seek our happiness here, and we need to realize that being purely happy on this earth isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because it is, just a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, and that was the book that kind of took me through. That was Larry Crabb's Shattered Dreams.
Shattered Dreams, yeah, it's a really good book. Well, before we show the video and let you go, does anybody have a question for Jess about her situation? I just think it's really cool that you have been able to learn.
Yeah.
And that's something we all want to be able to encourage one another about, I want to be sad, I want to deal with my grief, but I also kind of want to learn something from this.
And that was something that, like I remember, like, as I was, you know, one of the times when I was being driven away from the hospital is, you know, telling God, like, you better fucking use this. Sorry, language. You know, don't let my grief go to waste. And, you know, that was part of why I committed to, I call it grieving out loud, and just being very vulnerable with what I've been going through and whatnot, like one for my own growth, and also two, like for anyone else who's going through anything similar, like, you know, to just show like this is grief and this is, you know, and God has used it in so many ways, and it's been really powerful to see how he's still using it to grow me, to grow others, to you know, allowing me to do something like this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for stepping up. Amy Marino was supposed to speak tonight and she got sick, so at the last minute, I asked Jess, and I don't know if that was good, that you didn't have to think for a week or two to prepare, but I really appreciate you stepping up. So thanks. Okay.